Welcome to the latest edition of Prep Talk, the one and only weekly internet-based radio broadcast dedicated to high school sports in the Lane County area. My name is Conan Lee. Now, here's your hosts, Chris Park and Marvin Hammerschmidt.
Thank you very much, Conan. Chris, what do you got on the agenda today?
We have a full show, Marvin, Conan. 3 coach interviews: Cascade Christian coach John Gettman, Cottage Grove coach Gary Roberts, and later on Tigard coach Craig Rooker. A full show.
Wow, Tigard.
Yeah, we're Prep Talk Eugene, but we're covering the state.
That's awesome. Well, it is championship week for a lot of classifications out there. Of course, 6A will be in their semifinal mode this week. But let's talk about
Sheldon.
And
everybody, all 3 of us were out at that game this past Friday night. Cold night for the game. What were your thoughts on that? I enjoyed watching the game. A hard-hitting game. Canby wins 24-17.
At least it wasn't raining.
Yeah, that's a good thing. But
You guys got to move around. I was stuck behind the table. So,
Well, 24-17, but really the game wasn't that close. I've never seen in all the high school football I've watched at the 6A classification. Now that could change next year, but at the 6A classification, I've never seen a run dominating team like the Canby Cougars.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, both sides of their line really dominated the game. Don't you think, Conan?
absolutely. 72 plays from the line of scrimmage for the Canby Cougars, 395 yards, all of them rushing. No passing attempts. They did have a couple plays that were designed to pass, but quarterback Austin Taylor wasn't able to get the throw off on either of the plays. I guess you can say Sheldon did something right there, but they had 4 players that ran the ball at least 10 times, and they were led by Cole Thompson, Cole Thompson only had 9 carries for 106 yards. He had an incredible 61-yard touchdown run that gave Canby a 2-touchdown lead, a really just an insurmountable lead, and proved to be the difference in the game. Sheldon coming up short. They made a great effort coming back, came up short on an onside kick attempt, but it just wasn't meant to be for the Irish.
No. And, I think that I haven't seen line play like this. I've seen line play at the 5A level with Sherwood, but this was a straight-ahead offense, no gimmicks. But that offensive line for Canby just dominated, getting the running backs up into the second and third level. That 61-yard run was definitely probably the longest play from scrimmage. But it was 3, 4, 5 yards at a time, and they ate up an incredible amount of clock.
Yeah.
They did. They had 2 drives that were at least 6.5 minutes long. They had one that was 99.5 yards. It had to be at about the 6-inch line inside the one, pinned all the way back to the goal line after a Sheldon punt. But traditionally, Canby is a run-heavy school, and they have been for years. They've just had a history of losing key players to injuries, during the season, late in the season, and they always fall short in the playoffs. Here they are into the semifinals for only the second or third time altogether. And, they've got a beautiful facility up there in South Portland area. And, good for them. They put it all together, and they've got a pretty good shot against Jesuit.
Mm-hmm.
Jesuit, you got 2 Division I players on the line of scrimmage for Jesuit this year, 2 seniors. It should be a great game, great semifinal matchup.
I agree.
Yeah.
So probably the game of the week, though, was at the 4A level. Chris, you want to talk about Cottage Grove?
This was the best game I've seen this year in person, and probably one of the top 5 I've ever seen for high school football. Multiple lead changes, dozens of great key plays. Coming up in our interview, I actually asked Coach Gary Roberts of Cottage Grove what was like the key play, the biggest play of the game, and I won't give away his answer. You'll have to listen. But I had a hard time figuring out what was the best play, key play. What do you think, Marv? You and Conan, you guys saw that too.
Yeah, I did. I saw that final Cottage Grove drive for a touchdown.
And a blocked field goal, too, to win the game. That's got to be a big play.
Well, just that final drive alone had 3 or 4 key plays of the game right there. 4th and 21, 4th and 14. And Cottage Grove just continued to convert on those. And then, of course, eventually put the ball in the end zone, which was a key play.
I think the 4th down, anytime you can keep the drive going, 4th and 21, you come up short, and the the cutback that Brad Bonds made on 4th and 21
Yeah, that was
to
huge.
dive forward was good. You know what it reminds me of is Jeremiah Masoli getting that first down in the Civil War. Was it 2009?
Yeah,
Fourth
where
down.
he hit that Oregon State linebacker and
Just mulled him over.
Mulled him
and
over,
said,
yeah.
I'm not going to be denied. But just a great effort, and also a great defensive stand. Not only the blocked field goal, but a 25-yard pass completion for North Bend, where the guy had plenty of daylight in front of him, and a good open field tackle by Cottage Grove to hold them to only a field goal attempt rather than going for another lead change, which would have been an 8th or 9th lead change in the game.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic game. I'm really happy that Cottage Grove is moving forward. North Bend, great season for them. Unfortunately, their season ends, but Cottage Grove is hot, and they're going to play for their first ever state championship.
Well, I'll be rooting for him, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Gary Roberts coming up here, our interview, will have some information about Ridgeview, so we won't spend too much time previewing that.
Great. Well, how about 1A, Chris?
Another great game I was at. I saw Lowell versus Camas Valley. It was a great weekend for football for high school. Lowell wins 66-44. I had a chance to briefly talk with Lowell coach Pat Todd after the game. Lowell also playing for their first ever state championship. Camas Valley is a 2-time defending state champion. They had a 39-game win streak. They had some fast guys. They would just score on these 1 or 2 play drives. It was just boom, 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 lighting up the scoreboard. I'm really pleased Lowell got onto the state championship.
That's great. The other 1A game, Embler 62, Triangle Lake 6. So Triangle Lake gets eliminated. Lowell will play Embler for the state title at Hillsborough Stadium.
Yeah.
So Triangle Lake, great season.
Yeah, only 2 losses.
Only 2 losses, one to Lowell and one to Embler.
Right.
So
yeah, can't 2 teams in the state championship. So
right.
Good job by Triangle Lake. They'll
Yep.
get after it again next year.
Yep, that's great. And so right now we're going to go directly into our interview with Cascade Christian coach John Gettman. So we'll be right back with more on Prep Talk after the interview with Coach John Gettman.
This is Chris Park at Prep Talk Eugene. On the phone I have John Gettman. He's the head football coach at Cascade Christian. Coach Gettman, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Excited to be on.
Well, first of all, let's just jump in a little bit here. And can you tell our listeners a little bit about your coaching experience and maybe your background, where you went to school, and how long you've been at Cascade Christian? Give our listeners a little bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, I started coaching. I graduated from Cascade in 2003, and then I started helping out with the team in 2004. And I kind of just worked my way up there from ball boy to now coaching the head coach. So, anyways, went there while I was going to RCC and SAU.
Excellent. Cascade Christian has had a good amount of experience in the playoffs. Last year in the finals, lost to Dayton in a really good game, but been to the semis for the last 4 consecutive years since 2008. Been to the semis and won a state title in 2A back in 2006. So good history there for Cascade Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been blessed. Coach Meyer did a great job of just establishing a good foundation, and we had Brandon Boyce come in and kind of take it to another level, and I've just been fortunate to carry along what they've started.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the game last week, if we can. Your team was over at Summit High School in Bend, taking on the Vail Vikings. You end up winning 24-19. Great game, but you were down at the half 13-10 a little bit there. Can you tell us a little bit about that game and how things went for your team, and maybe some players who stood out and some things about that game that you're proud about for your team?
Yeah, I mean, Vail is a great opponent, and they're a physical team. It was just a violent game all night long, and they did a great job of running the ball against us, especially in that first half. And anyways, we went to halftime just knowing that we need to make some adjustments offensively, just kind of get into a groove. We never really found a groove. We were kind of hit and miss throughout. And so I feel like, Seth Knox, who's our quarterback, came out and did a great job of just getting into a groove and just taking what was given to us. Cody Parker, he made a big hit near the goal line. That kind of, after we had scored, they returned the ball down to 10-yard line or so, and he made a big hit on a third down play that kind of was a momentum type of hit. And Cooper Clark, he made a number of great catches off a tip pass, caught it for a touchdown. Also made the interception to kind of seal the game. And, I mean, there was just a number of great individual efforts out there as well as the team. But, yeah, I felt like the kids kind of settled down after halftime and found a groove and played a much better game defensively, which is really what we need to do. And so I was just very pleased with the effort that they gave.
This is Prep Talk Eugene. Chris Park here on the phone. I have John Gettman. He is the head football coach for Cascade Christian Challengers. They have a semifinal playoff game. This is a championship game on Saturday. It's early in the morning here, Coach. Apologize there. Against Nissa on Saturday. Coach Gettman, how would you describe your team this year? If you could use maybe 2 or 3 adjectives to describe the 2013 version of the Cascade Christian Challengers.
I'd say humbleness and perseverance.
Excellent. What do you think the strength of your team is this year?
I'd just say it's in its unity as a team, kind of a team approach. In the past year, especially last year, we had a couple players that really were standouts, and this year there's just an overall team approach that we need every guy, and we don't know who's going to step up this game, but we know someone's going to step up that really hasn't grabbed the headlines, and so we'll need it. So yeah, it's just the team. Really, that's what it's great about this team is their humility and willing to serve one another.
Let's talk a little bit about the game coming up this week on Saturday, the championship game for 3A versus Nissa. Another Eastern Oregon team, going to be a physical team. Those teams from Eastern Oregon like to show what they've got there. They're 12-0. Do you think having a physical game last week against Vail might get you ready for this game, might be a good thing for your team?
Well, I think any game, once you get to the semis, is going to get you ready for a championship game. I mean, we played Nissa last year, and you just saw the level of talent that they have across the board. And so it's going to be a physical game, but they also have some great skill guys. I mean, they got the ability to pass the ball with their quarterbacks and their receivers. And so we just got to be prepared, I think, for a little bit of everything, a physical game as well as just matching up the skill guys against one another.
For some of our listeners who don't know very much about Nissa, I'm not asking for a scouting report here to give away any secrets or anything, but are they a run team, a pass team? Do they mix it up? Are they?
No, they do a good job of mixing up. Their quarterback, I believe, has been starting for 3 years, and anyway, so they do a good job of mixing run pass. Yeah, they'd love to run the ball, but they're not stuck to run the ball, and I mean they'll take what the defense is giving them. So if they give it to if you give it to them, they'll run leads all night long and toss games. So if you take that away, they can get out of the pocket with their quarterback, get out on a boot or a naked or anything like that, and their quarterback's just a savvy kid. He won the game last week for them, and teams always make plays when they need it.
Your team has two losses on the year. One of those is to Ridgeview, a 4A team who's also in the finals against Cottage Grove. But all your games have been pretty close, and that's a good thing for your team. Do you think that's prepared you well for this game, and also the fact, looking at some common opponents that Cascade Christian and Nissa have?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think this year it was just for us, especially early on, it was just a battle for each and every game just to win it, and it really helps. I mean, the adversity is what really helps the team grow, and I think this team has grown probably more than other teams I've had in the past, just because of what they've gone through and what they've been faced with, and just each day getting better, each day focusing on the task at hand, and so that's I don't want close games. They're not they create a lot of nerves in a coach, but they're the best for you.
This is Prep Talk Eugene. Chris Park. I'm speaking with John Gettman. He's the head football coach at Cascade Christian. They're in the championship game for 3A this Saturday against Nissa. Let me give you a hypothetical, Coach Gettman. In a close game, would you prefer to have the ball? Would you rather be on defense, or does it not matter?
To me, it doesn't matter. I mean, I trust our kids. I trust Seth Knox to lead our team if we're in a situation where we have to score at the end of the game to win it. But I also trust our defense. I mean, our defense has been playing well. They've come up with a number of big stops. They had big stops last week, and so anyways, we're just gonna stay aggressive whatever situation we're in, and just trust in the fact of our preparation and what we've done for the week, and go with it, and just enjoy the ride.
Just a couple more questions for you, Coach, before we let you go. Appreciate your time speaking with us here on Prep Talk Eugene. Is your preparation this week, how does that differ, if it does, for a championship game? I mean, is there anything that you do differently, or do you try to keep it the same? What does your preparation look like this week? Do you try to get a practice at around game time, simulating game time conditions? What kind of things do you do this week in preparing?
Well, we try to keep it kind of our schedule the same throughout, from the regular season to the postseason, and really just to focus in, get our kids to focus in on the practice, to not get caught up in that the championship game or anything like that. To really just speak of Nissa, that they're an incredible opponent that's going to be a great challenge for us, and we just have to practice. For us, we got to work out this morning, and then we got to go practice this afternoon. We got to have our best practice of the year, and we have to be engaged. We have to bring energy, and we have to execute during practice. And just to continue to keep that in our mind, and to help our kids just to focus on when those thoughts come of championship game, to just kind of let those things go and focus back in on what we have to do this time to get better.
Now the game is Saturday at 2:30 at Summer High School. How was that selected? Can you go through that with our listeners here, our viewers, regarding how that game is selected? Does the OSAA say, hey, it's here, just show up? Or is there a little bit of discussion with a team that has to travel quite far? How does that go about?
From my end, it was kind of this is where we're going to be, but I believe that kind of the selection process and what they've done is gone to a central location. Last year when we were in the championship game, they went to they had a Cottage because Dayton and ourselves, so it's kind of in between that. And I think that's their main focus, is try to get a central location where neither team has to travel all the way across the state, and save a little money in the travel costs, and I'm sure it helps them out as well. So, Summit's a great school. It's a great field, a great surface. So we're just excited to be in it. Wherever they told us to go, we go.
Excellent. Great attitude. Okay. This is Prep Talk Eugene. Chris Park. I've been speaking with John Gettman. He's the head football coach at Cascade Christian. The Challengers are taking on Nissa Saturday at 2:30 at Summer High School for the championship of Class 3A. Coach Gettman, good luck to your team on Saturday. You and your team have a great game, and thank you very much for speaking with us on Prep Talk.
Great. I appreciate the time to speak to you guys.
Welcome back to Prep Talk. This is Marvin Hammersmith along with Chris Park and Conan Lee. Prep Talk's the one and only weekly internet-based radio broadcast dedicated to high school sports in Lane County, Oregon. Hey, Chris, you got anything for Stump Marvin?
I absolutely do. It's playoff time. It's championship and semifinal football, so that's what our question's going to be. Conan, you can help Marvin out because he's going to need the help. I got two.
I like this. I must have done so bad over this season, Conan, that he had to bring in some help for me.
Yeah. Well, I got some people helping me write questions too, Marv. So, okay.
Of course.
Stump Marvin and Conan. Here we go. And there's two questions. If you get the first one right, I got another. Canby. The last time Canby got to the semis. And
last time.
Have they ever been to the finals?
1993.
I kind of answered that already.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, they've been to the finals. No?
Nope, never have. Ever. They've been
they've been to the semifinals. I want to say 1993 or 1983.
They've been to the semifinals 6 times.
So, and your question was the last time they were there?
The last time they were in the semis for Canby.
Well, Conan's saying 93. That's probably not it.
That's not it. It's actually in the 2000s.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe it was 2003.
They were in the semis in 2003. The last time, though, was 2009.
Really? That's not that long ago.
Yeah. Canby's
I
done
should have
well.
known that.
You actually mentioned that last week.
I did.
You did, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
But
you guys don't get
they've
that one right.
they've been surrounded by so many 5-6 and 6-5 seasons recently that and here they are at 7-5 on the season this year. I personally wasn't too surprised at what they did to Sheldon. And Marvin, you say it wasn't as close as the score indicates. I thought it was a great game.
It was a good game, though. Yeah,
It was.
I agree with you.
But just
Absolutely.
the clock domination.
It was a fast game.
Oh, it was just ball control.
The
Canby.
game was over at 9:00.
It was cold. I don't care. It was cold. I was doing the post game, and you could hear, it was bad.
Little chatter. Yeah. Well, that was a good question, Chris.
Well,
you
here
finally brought us a good question.
Here comes another one.
Okay.
Now, we have Lowell
Yes.
in the 1A final for the first time for Lowell ever.
Okay.
The last Eugene area team to get to the 1A finals, not Mohawk. Mohawk was the last team to do it in 2007 and 2005. They had a good run there, and I think you knew that. That's why I said not Mohawk, because we've talked about that. So what team and who was their coach, 1A locally, to get to the finals? It's a confusing question. Does it make sense?
No.
A 1A team locally that made it to the finals most recently here in the Eugene area, but not including Mohawk. Mohawk was there in 2007, 2005.
Boy, I almost want to say
So
it's
you're
Triangle
looking
Lake.
You're looking at Triangle Lake, Crow, Mapleton, McKenzie, Silence Valley, Yoncalla. I'll give you a hint. Mapleton has never been to the championship game ever, so it's not them.
That's my only hint, huh?
That's your only hint.
I almost want to say I can remember Triangle Lake winning the whole thing.
Triangle Lake has never been to the championship.
Wow.
Yeah, they've been to the championship twice, but they've never won it, and it was in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, that's a while ago.
So somebody's been more recently. I'll give you a hint. It starts with an M.
Mohawk was there in the middle 2000,
but not
area.
Mohawk. Yeah, they had a dominant.
Not Mapleton, Mohawk, or
Yeah.
And it does start with an M.
It starts-
Mackenzie.
It's Mackenzie. And it was in 2004, the last local 1A team, other than Mohawk, to get to the championship game here. In 2004, they lost it. Who was the coach for Mackenzie? People listening and going, wow, I don't know. Who is that going to be? But the name Marvin will chuckle when he hears it.
I'll chuckle, huh?
He'll chuckle before he hears it.
Rick Gardner.
Gosh, darn it. Well, Conan, I said he would chuckle. I thought he'd chuckle because he didn't get it right. Good job, Marvin. I thought I had you. Where did you pull that one out of?
I can remember.
I don't want to hear it. You
Yeah.
pulled it out of somewhere.
You got to hear this because, you can't. Rick Gardner,
Assistant coach at Marist. now.
assistant coach at Marist, and a good friend of ours, I would say, friend of the show.
Yep, friend of the show.
I listened to him talk at a sports banquet once, and he mentioned that he was the head coach at Mackenzie. So I just kind of drew that out of the back of my mind and figured it was him.
Well, I'm going to have to eat my crow and say congratulations, Marvin. I thought I had you there.
Well, thanks. That's a great, great Stump Marvin and Conan questions. We're going to go right now. We're going to go right into an interview with Cottage Grove Gary Roberts, who's going to talk about the big win against North Bend last week. So we'll be right back after that interview with Gary Roberts.
This is Prep Talk Eugene. Chris Park. Have on the phone here Cottage Grove head football coach Gary Roberts. Coach Roberts, thank you very much for taking the time to sit down and speak with us this afternoon.
Oh, it's no problem.
Well, first of all, thank you and congratulations for a really great win last Saturday night, North Bend at Autzen Stadium, 37-34. You got to be really, really proud of your kids after that game. What, in review of that game, just talk a little bit about that. What a great environment. What a great competitive game.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, there was a lot of people there. It was really loud, and I can't imagine what a full Autzen Stadium sounds like when we had about probably 4,000 people there on Saturday, and it was unbelievably loud. But it was a lot of fun. The kids did a great job. We hung in there. We fought the whole time, and I think just like the rest of the kids, I'm just really excited that we get to have this last week and be one of those teams that your season's done on Saturday. It's just whether it's with a blue trophy or a second place trophy.
Well, just a couple questions about that North Bend game, just because it to me, it was the best game I've seen this year, and probably one of the top 5 games I've been to for high school sports in football. So just a couple questions about that game. What, if I could get you to commit or nail down 1 or 2 plays of the game? I came up with about 6 or 7, but there were just so many. Blocked field goal, 2 4th and long plays for Cottage Grove. If you could pick 1 or 2 plays of the game for the Lions, what would you say those would be?
Well, I'd have to say the first 4th down when it was 4th and I think 20 or 21, and we had a play that we kind of had, kind of stored away. That it wasn't necessarily a desperation play, but it was when you need something, this might be here, and we just kind of said, let's call it now, and we hit Brad on the seam, but he ended up being about 6-7 yards short when he caught the ball, and there was 5 North Bend defenders we counted on film that could have tackled him, and he made a little quick spin move, and all 5 of them missed him, and so he was able to pick up the first down there, and what an effort by him to get that first down marker, and like I said, the other 4th down and the field goal were also huge plays, but I think that one play, that 4th and 21, kind of epitomized the fight and the will of our kids to want to keep playing.
Oh, I would agree. That was an extraordinary effort there. I was also really impressed, though, with the line protection that your O-line gave for your quarterback, Scotty Hittner. He, especially on those 2 4th down conversions and the touchdown, and most of the night he had time to see the field. And sometimes the O-line guys are unsung heroes, but I felt like that was a good aspect for your team. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think our offensive line's been kind of the unsung hero all year. We did Scotty and Oscar and Brad get all the kind of the publicity and the pats on the back for putting up statistics, but it's the offensive line guys that have protected us, and they've done a good job this year. Now we're gonna have our hands full this week. This is a defense on Saturday we're gonna see in Ridgeview that's very similar to North Bend. Might be even a little more aggressive, and I didn't think I'd see a defense as aggressive as North Bend, but we got a big week for us, and our offensive line's gonna have to play exceptionally well this week.
One last question here before we move on to some Ridgeview questions for you. This is Prep Talk Eugene. Chris Park. I'm speaking with Gary Roberts, the head football coach at Cottage Grove High School. They're in the state championship game on Saturday at Hillsborough Stadium at 11 a.m. Coach Roberts, what would you say you're most proud about of your kids and your team so far this year, what they've done? Lots of things to be proud of, but what stands out that you're just really, really pleased about your kids so far?
Well, I mean, a couple things that stand out to me is the first thing is starting off 0-2 and kind of getting blown out the second game and rallying and putting together a tough win out North Bend back in September, and then kind of getting a good jump and from that win and letting it kind of get us going. I mean, we could have got our heads down and pouted and with the expectations we had coming in the season, but we didn't. We hung in there strong and we kept improving. And I think the other thing that really makes me proud of this team is that when I first got here, I was only told about how Cottage Grove I was underachievers, to be honest with you, and that they didn't have, they had kids that when adversity struck they would fold and quit. And I saw that early on when I was here. I saw that kind of mentality with our kids. But it seems like the last 2 years, and especially this year, we've had a ton of fight in us, and we've rallied in a couple games. North Bend twice, and even kind of Central. Felt rallied in the fourth quarter, and have won ball games that in the past, people that are longtime Cottage Grove people said there's no way that Cottage Grove in the past wins that game. So those kind of things make me proud of our kids and proud of our coaches and the job that we've done.
Well, that's great. That's fantastic. Do you think these some of these close games that you've had this year might actually help you down the road as far as your kids feeling confident and knowing that, hey, we've been here on 4th and long, late in the game, we can do this?
I sure think it doesn't hurt, that we've completed 4th down conversions in the last 2 ball games that have been huge. And, the neat thing is in high school, this high school sports is about getting kids ready for life, and I'm hoping that our kids now will be ready when they get a long 4th down, a conversion in life that they have to deal with, whether it's a job or a family or something, and they're going to have that mental toughness to fight through it, and that's what I think high school football is all about, is teaching kids life lessons.
Let's talk a little bit about Ridgeview. They're pretty much a ground running team, but they do throw the ball on occasion. Seems like when they do throw it, it's for some pretty good yardage. Big win for them last week in the semifinal against Philomath. They're 12-1 on the year. For some of our listeners who may not know anything about Ridgeview, you just give us a little bit of background about what you might face in the Ridgeview Ravens this Saturday.
Well, they're a really physical team, and they run the fly offense exceptionally well. Their quarterback, number 14, does a really good job. I mean, he throws some great passes, and he's really good. And and then their running back Boomer Fleming is scholarship wrestler and to Stanford, which tells me that he's not only a really good football player, but a really good person if you're in the caliber of Stanford education. So. He runs the ball really well. They've got big fullback, big linemen, and we saw them as they were coming out here. As our kids were kind of starting to flow in for our game to get the lead to go to Hudson. Their kids were warming up, and they're very impressive. And we've got our work cut out for us on Saturday. That's for sure.
Well, they have two backs that have over 1,500 yards so far this year. And they surprised me. I don't know if anybody else was surprised, but they really put a big win there against Philomath. So what kind of game do you expect this week for the Lions? What do you think the keys to the game might be?
Well, I think the keys to this week are going to be, obviously, we have to gang tackle. Both backs that they have, their fly back and their running back Boomer, they don't go down with single tacklers very often, and they run through arm tackles very well. So our kids are going to have to gang tackle. And I think on the offensive side of the ball, we're always going to have to protect and establish a little bit of a run game and force them to either defend the run or defend the throw, not be able to do both. I think those are kind of the keys for us.
Well, you had some experience last week gang tackling the big running back for North Bend, Mason Laird. He's a handful to tackle, but I thought your kids did a pretty decent job, but he still had some moves in the open field, so perhaps that might help you this week, having prepared for him.
I think so a little bit. I mean, North Bend is a predominantly running offense, even though they did a good job of throwing as well, but, their bread and butter is kind of the run game, and just like Ridgeview, it's just a little bit different look. One spreads you out and runs, and the other one packs it in and tries to pound you. And I think Fleming is faster. I think the Ridgeview back is faster than North Bend's back, but pretty similar. It's a good call.
All right, this is Prep Talk Eugene. Chris Park. I'm speaking with Gary Roberts. He's the head football coach at Cottage Grove. Coach Roberts, I again want to say thank you for being on our show today. Third time this season. It's been a special season. Appreciate you being so flexible and willing to come on. Good luck to Cottage Grove this Saturday. A historic season so far. It could be an exceptionally historic season with a win on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. We're going to win on Saturday. We're giving the kids a day off today. It's Monday, and then we'll get back to our normal weekly routine since we play on Saturday. But tomorrow we're back to work, and we're going up there to win on Saturday. We're not happy. We're not going to just accept being in the game. We want to go up there and win the game.
Well, good luck to you, and thank you again for taking the time to speak with us here on Prep Talk Eugene.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Prep Talk. This is Marvin Hammersmith along with Conan Lee and Chris Park. Prep Talk's the one and only weekly internet-based radio broadcast dedicated to high school sports in Lane County, Oregon. Well, that was a great interview with Cottage Grove coach Gary Roberts, getting his team ready for their first ever state championship game.
I agree, and I forgot to ask him something about Scotty Hittner. When I was at that game at Autzen Stadium on the sidelines, Scotty Hittner actually ran towards the sideline being chased by the North Bend folks, and he ran into a cheerleader, and he very gently cradled her and lowered her to the ground. Didn't hurt her at all, and it was so gentle. And then he picks her up very gently and makes sure she's okay. I'm thinking, here's a quarterback in a semifinal game. He'd be thinking about what's the next play. I got to get back to the huddle. He actually picks her up, helps her up, makes sure she's okay. I forgot to ask Coach Gary Roberts about that.
She was probably starstruck.
She could have been, but I just thought it was a very gentlemanly thing to do, and it was nice. But good luck to Cottage Grove this week.
Yeah, and and I'm hoping to have Scotty maybe on our next show after their big win this weekend. But hey, speaking of Cottage Grove, I just wanted to give a shout out. Starting Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. at Cottage Grove High School. Those interested can go to the high school and get their spirit gear. A company called Hot Tees will be setting up at Cottage Grove High School. They're offering a variety of colors and sizes of T-shirts, sweatshirts, sweatpants at a variety of different pricing levels, and everything's printed right there in front of them.
That's
so
great.
They can go get their spirit gear so they can show their spirit up there at the state title game, which is what we're going to start talking about now is some of the games coming up this week, and we'll start with Cottage Grove against Ridgeview.
I think it's going to be a great game. We had a little bit of an interview there with Gary Roberts. Ridgeview is a physical team. They're a big team. They run that fly sweep offense. Good luck to Cottage Grove. It's going to be a good game, but it'll be interesting with the passing attack of Cottage Grove versus Ridgeview.
A lot of people don't know a whole lot about Ridgeview because they're only a 2-year-old high school.
Yeah.
This school was built over in the Redmond area and actually split Redmond High School in half.
Mm-hmm.
And Ridgeview is starting out play at 4A. They are expected at some point in time to move up. And Redmond High School, of course, went down from 6A to 5A. So,
What a contrast. Last year, Redmond did super good in their last year before they got, and then Ridgeview this year, all those kids in that area.
And Mountain View the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of good football being played over on the east side of the mountains. So, Chris, how about you give us some insight into the 1A game?
Lowell in their first state championship appearance ever versus Imbler. Lowell is about 40 points away from the national high school football scoring record. I'm sure they'd rather get 10 points than a win. It doesn't matter. They just want to get a win. This could be a really good game. This is up in Portland at Hillsborough Stadium as well, I believe, at 2:15 on Saturday. So the Red Devils taking on Imbler for the state championship. Imbler's been there before. This is going to be a good game, be a tough game, but good luck to the Red Devils.
And this is being played up in Hillsborough? Is that
Yes,
right?
Hillsborough Stadium, 2:15, I believe, on Saturday.
Great.
And right after the Cottage Grove game.
How about 2A, Chris?
Grant Union Regis, and I believe Conan's going to fill us in on that one.
It's redemption is what it is. It's Regis getting knocked out last year by the Grant Union Prospectors 26. Actually, they went down 29-26 in the first round of the 2A OSA playoffs. Grant Union had been in 3A the year before and moved down, started having a little bit more success. They would go on to lose in the quarterfinals last year, Grant Union. Both teams come in, Grant Union 11-1, Regis, the Rams are 12-1, and so a lot of juniors and seniors for Regis got to be set up for another opportunity to play Grant Union. Regis lost to Portland Christian. Grant Union beat Portland Christian. Portland Christian was also 12-1. They were up there in the top 3 all year long at the 2A level. So
Portland Christian was in the state championship last year against Oakland.
So a lot of redemption there on the table for Regis.
Yep.
Good point.
So, Chris, do you have the 3A game?
3A Cascade Christian Nissa. We had an interview with John Gettman, the coach at Cascade Christian. The Eastern Oregon teams are always a little bit of a mystery. They're usually pretty physical. I think Cascade Christian will benefit having played Vale last week, who's from the same conference as Nissa. So that may have been a good game to get them ready for this. I believe this is also over in Summit, Cascade Christian versus Nissa.
Yeah, it'll be played at Summit High School. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Nissa was the number 2 team out of their league, or were they the number 1 team?
They may have been the league champs over there. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I know it was Nail Vissa, or pardon me, I guess
Vale.
I'm Vale Nissa, not Nail Vissa. Vale Nissa 1-2 in that league. I'm not sure which one was first or second, though. But both really good teams.
Really good teams, yeah.
Well, Vale took out Harrisburg this year, didn't they?
Right,
So
right.
Vale came in at 11-1. I'm going to say that they took the league championship, and Nissa would have been the runner-up in their
That's
league.
right. So a little redemption for Nissa there to get to the state title game. So we've already talked about Cottage Grove and Ridgeview. So 5A Sherwood versus West Albany. And, a lot of us here are very familiar, as people around the state are familiar with Sherwood. I got to see West Albany play this year. Again, talked about them last week. and we just thought it was hard to believe that West Albany could shut down Silverton. They did last week, shut them out 17-0.
Yeah.
Sherwood dominated West Albany in the second game of the season this year.
And
I don't know.
dominated Ashland as well in their semifinal matchup.
Sherwood only ran 21 offensive plays in the first half against Ashland, and they were still up. I think it was 30-6.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And Sherwood is the odds-on favorite in this game, and will probably win. But does history repeat itself? Does West Albany pull a Mountain View this year?
A lot of people say it's hard to beat a team twice in one season. I got to think that West Albany has as good a chance or better than anybody else. They're familiar. They've seen Sherwood. I think Jake Lacoste and his effort with 33 carries, 205 yards against Silverton. The way West Albany shut down some. Now, we saw Silverton and Springfield 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And we saw what Max Wilson did in the running game against Springfield. And West Albany went and shut out Silverton for the second time
this year, yeah.
And, and then we were looking at the stats. The Silverton didn't even cross midfield in the second half of that semifinal matchup this last weekend. So I gotta think that West Albany has more than just a good chance. They're a good team. They're in the championship for a reason, and Sherwood's not going to take them lightly.
No, that's right. I still think, my personal opinion is, I think Sherwood's probably going to win the game, but I'd like to see Sherwood be in a game for the state championship game. I'd like it to be closer than what their scores have been.
Every one of their games has had a running clock.
Yeah.
It's just and so will that happen in the championship? It didn't happen in the championship game last year. There was no running clock, although the game wasn't super close.
Well, but they also dominated 2 years ago, and then here comes Mountain View, a team they played earlier in the season. They beat them, by 30, 35 points in the second week of the 2011 season, and then Mountain View turns around and beats them 14-13 in the championship game.
Yeah.
So,
well, and it's interesting. The interesting part is both these schools are moving up to 6A next year.
You're right. Yeah.
So it's I think it's worth a watch. I think it's gonna hopefully it's gonna be a good game.
If we could have had both of these coaches on, the one question I would be dying to ask is both of them. How do you prepare for a team that you've beat 49-0? How do you prepare for a team that you've lost to 49-0 already this year? Just because I think the answers would be very interesting to hear.
Absolutely. Maybe someday we'll get that chance.
Yeah.
Well, in the 6A level, they're only in their semifinals. We start out with Tigard versus Central Catholic, and I think Tigard's been the odds-on favorite for a good part of the year, good part of the season to win the state title game. But I think it's a good matchup with Central Catholic.
I think so too. This is going to be a really hard-hitting, excellent game to watch.
Canby versus Jesuit is the other semifinal game. We've talked a lot about Canby. We got to see them against Sheldon. Conan, tell me about Jesuit.
Couple of D1 people on the line of scrimmage. Jesuit's always strong. One of the smallest enrollments, and the smallest enrollment of the upper classification, as far as I know. And basically a private school. A lot of people complain that they keep winning, but they just keep winning. And they're Jesuit. They've just got a great tradition. You can't talk about high school football in late November in the state of Oregon without talking about Jesuit.
Right. Well, it's going to be a couple of really big lines, and I think, again, this game is going to come down to who wins the battle in the trenches. But what a great game to go watch. I'd love to go watch that game.
Both of these games, and I think you look at Tigard and Central Catholic, two undefeated teams. A lot of Division I players on between all four of those, I think Canby is not just going to roll over. We saw what they did to Sheldon at Ludwig Stadium.
Exactly.
So I think
we know that Jesuit likes to run the ball, and so does Canby. How many passes total for both teams in this game, and how long does this game take? This game could be over in an hour and a half.
Well, yeah, if
5 passes total between both teams.
As long as you keep
It's
moving
not
the
out of the
chains,
question.
the clock keeps running, right? So, speaking of Tigard, we're going to break right now and go straight into our interview with Tigard coach Craig Rooker. and we'll be right back with more on Prep Talk.
This is Prep Talk Eugene. Chris Park here. I'm speaking with Tigard head football coach Craig Rooker. Coach, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us this evening about your football team.
Well, thank you for the invite, Chris. Happy to do it.
First of all, let's talk a little bit about the last couple of games for Tigard. 42-0 win over North Medford, 62-7 over Tualatin. Playoff games are going well so far. The year's going well. You're 12-0. Things look really good the last couple of games in the playoffs. Just tell us a little bit about those games, if you could.
Okay. And just a slight correction, we played Grants Pass the week before.
My bad. Thank you.
And it was 62-3, I think. So, anyway, yes, we've had a wonderful season, and to our players' credit, they have continued to get better, and I think that we have played our best football these past couple of weeks, and obviously this is the time of the year that you want to be playing your best football.
Absolutely. When you look at your team, what do you think the strength of your team is this year? You could probably list quite a few things. Got a really high-powered offense, got a pretty darn good hard-hitting defense, but as a coach, and you look back, what do you think the strength of the Tigard Tigers is this year?
Well, the strength of our team overall is that we have a lot of playmakers, both on offense and defense. We have wonderful team speed. We don't have two kids that are fast. We have many, many kids that are fast. And so, if you were to pick one particular group, it would probably be our defense. Our defense has performed extremely well throughout the year. We are plus 30 in takeaways, in turnover margin. We have turned the ball over 8 times in our 12 games, and we have taken the ball away from the other team 38 times.
Well, that's fantastic.
So, that's obviously our offense, knock on wood, has been taking good care of the football. But at the same time, our defense gives our offense many, many chances. So we're real proud of our defense and how they've been playing. Now, obviously, this week against Central Catholic, it's a huge challenge because they're only averaging about 700 points a game.
We'll talk a little bit about Central Catholic here in a little bit, but let's focus, if I could, just maybe one more question about your team, Tigard. We've talked in the past about football being the greatest game ever invented. The goal is to get the ball across the last white line, and it's a team game. It's we, not me. What is Tigard football when you talk about Tigard football to your kids, especially kids new to the program, the freshmen that come in? How do you explain what Tigard football is? What makes it special?
Okay, Tigard football is about 2 particular things. One is being first class, and secondly, doing your own job. And being first class means being a good citizen, a good student, a good person with character in school and on the playing field. We play extremely hard, play extremely physical. We play the game like it's meant to be played. At the same time, we're not into all of the trash talking and look at me and that kind of thing, because it is the greatest team game of any game going. The idea of doing your own job fits in with what a great team game it is. In order for a play to work on offense, defense, or the special teams, you need to take care of your own job. And if you do your job, not worry about if somebody else can do theirs, but you do your job and your teammate does his job and so on. That's how good plays happen. And it doesn't matter if you are an offensive guard or the quarterback or the guy that happens to carry the ball across that last white line. You all shared equally in making that play a successful play. You know, I use the illustration all the time with our young men that I don't care how great Manning happens to be, and I think he's a fantastic quarterback, but if his line doesn't protect him, if his receivers don't run good routes, if they don't have a running game, then he's not the quarterback that we all see. So when kids come in to play Tigard football, starting from the third grade on up, they all get T-shirts. The third graders on up get T-shirts about be first class and do your own job.
Excellent summary. So let's transition to talk about Central Catholic, because I think that fits because, number one, they've got a lot of great athletes. And do you think it helps your team and your kids to focus a little bit this week when you just break it down and focus on the individual matchups and doing your individual job? Because it's easy to just look at the big picture and say, wow, they're just really good. But your philosophy is very team-oriented, and is that going to be the focus this week?
Well, it is every week. And we are trying to approach this game in the same manner that we approach every game. One of the things that I'm most proud about of our football team this year is that whether we were playing a team like last week in North Medford that coming into the game had a record of 10-1, or whether we were playing a team earlier in the season that maybe was, 2-5, our team has prepared in fashion every week to get ready to play and to try and play the best football that we can. And so we're just going about our business as normal. Of course, the kids realize that Central Catholic is 12-0 and that we're 12-0 and that both of us have had good seasons, but you can get really caught up in all of that stuff and forget about blocking and tackling, and that's where football is played. And we have a world of respect for Central Catholic. I don't know if you remember, but we played Central Catholic last year in the quarterfinals. Mm-hmm. And it was an absolutely great football game. Went to the last minute, and both teams walked away, I think, with great respect for each other, because both teams made all kinds of plays, and we were fortunate enough to come out on top. But it was 43-37, and it was quite the football game.
This is Prep Talk Eugene, and I'm speaking with Tigard head football coach Craig Rooker. Coach, what do you think was the best game so far this year for your team? Regardless of the score, you're 12-0. You've had a lot of good games, but what do you think your best performance was completely so far this year?
Boy, that's very difficult to say. I'm going to guess.
Maybe there's more than one.
Yeah, there's a couple of games that stand out. One was Tualatin is always a team that is highly considered in our conference and in the state, and our players scored very frequently. We were ahead 41-0 at halftime. We had the ball 6 times and scored 6 touchdowns, and they hadn't had a first down in the first half. And so that was obviously some great football. And Tualatin went on and played into the second round and got beat by Sheldon. And so I think it was 21-21 in the third quarter against Sheldon until Sheldon pulled away. So Tualatin was not a bad football team. I think the other game was playing that stands out was North Medford of last week, where they came in with, as I mentioned earlier, a 10-game winning streak and had beaten Sheldon and had beaten Oregon City, and our kids held them to, I think it was 99 yards passing and minus 4 yards rushing. And so we played great defense, and that was a pretty nice performance too.
I would agree with that. Just a couple more questions here before we cut you loose, Coach. I know it's late. It's nearly 9:30 at night, and I just want to highlight that for folks who are listening here in the next few days. It's in the middle of the week. It's 9:30 at night. It's been a busy day for you. Really appreciate your time. 2 questions left here. What area do you think your team has improved the most so far this year? From game number 1 to where you're at now, sounds like the last couple of games have been really good games for you. But what area have you seen your team improve the most so far this year?
I think our biggest concern coming into the football season, as I mentioned earlier, and we were in the semifinals last year, and we returned quite a few players from last year's team, but we graduated 4 of our starting 5 offensive linemen. And an offense is only as good as the offensive line is, and so we had to replace 4 starters. And that has been the place that we were pleasantly surprised from the very first game on, how well they played and what a nice unit they have become. And to be very honest with you, while we're not small, but we're not as big as we were a year ago in the offensive line. We are much more athletic, and that has allowed us, we average about 300 yards a game rushing and 225 yards a game passing. So that's all due to an offensive line that can run block and pass block and give our playmakers opportunities to make plays.
Excellent. I think that makes perfect sense with the amount of points you're scoring, too. 661 points on the year so far. Last question here, Coach. Thank you again for your time. What do you think the keys to the game will be this Saturday against Central Catholic, 4 p.m. Saturday at Gerald Wynn Field?
Well, that's a really interesting question because it would take a smarter man than me to figure out we're scoring a lot of points a game and they're scoring a lot of points a game. And at the same time, I think that both teams have probably the top defenses in the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so might the game be 14-10, or might the game be 55-54? Obviously, keys to the game is that somebody's defense is going to have to step up and get some stops. Last year, when we played each other, both of us scored on almost every possession in the first half, and they were ahead 28-21 in the first half at halftime. But in the second half, they only scored 1 touchdown and a field goal, and our kids continued to keep scoring, scored 3 more touchdowns, and we were able to get to 43, and they stayed at 37. So, those defensive stops become critical. And, of course, who knows? Maybe both offenses will be stymied more than normal. It will be quite a game, I'm sure.
I think it's going to be a great game. I look forward to it. Let's go ahead and wrap up. Thank you very much. This has been Prep Talk Eugene. Chris Park speaking with Tigard head football coach Craig Rooker. Coach, good luck to your team on Saturday. Look forward to a good game. Thank you again for taking the time to speak with us this evening.
Well, thank you, Chris.
Welcome back to Prep Talk. This is Marvin Hammersmith along with Conan Lee and Chris Park. Prep Talk, the one and only weekly internet-based radio broadcast dedicated to high school sports in Lane County, Oregon. Well, guys, it's time for our roundtable discussion. And this week, we got this information from our resident stalker, or listener, I mean.
We have a loyal listener.
Loyal listener, that's the word I was looking for.
And this is really a round table discussion. We're talking about a 6'4", 400-pound running back from Yakima, Washington, White Swan High School named Tony Picard. And I gave you guys some information, had you Google him and do some video review. And my question to you is this a good position for this guy to be playing? How do you stop a 6'4", 400-pound running back?
Well, first off, my computer screen wasn't wide enough.
You had to zoom out?
I had to zoom out, yeah. You know,
did you see how small the ball looked in his hands?
yeah, did you see how small the other players looked trying to tackle him?
Mongo.
Yeah.
Do you think this
That's
is
right.
actually a strategy, or is the coach just having fun with his team and his guys?
Well, you know, the story talks about that, you know, he's got a guy that's, you know, this big who actually has some speed and can move and has some moves, apparently. And he just came to him that, you know, if he put this guy at tailback, maybe people would have a hard time tackling him.
Yeah.
And that's what it looks like on the, you know, on the videos that
He
I
does
watched.
run some people over.
Yeah.
The coach actually said he was, quote, faster than expected. How do you interpret that?
I don't know, a 10-second 40 versus a 15-second 40. I don't
I
know.
was expecting you to be slower.
That was on a skateboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think that, you know, coaches, if you're out for a win, a coach is going to he's going to plug players in to where it gives his team the most success. And, you know, putting this guy in there has obviously given him some success there with the team.
He's
so
rushed for over 400 yards on the season.
on the season.
Yeah. not in one game. No. And, you know, we saw Roosevelt do this when they had some really big fellows that they would line up in the backfield
Sure.
For blocking and then also hand the ball off. So Conan, let me ask you this. Do you think 6'4", 400-pound running back Tony Picard at White Swan High School in Yakima, do you think he's a downhill runner? Or is he an uphill runner?
He's not going to try to get to the outside on you. He's definitely in between the hash marks. And watching the video of some of these people trying to defend him is, you know, they're standing up at the line of scrimmage. If he's in there, there's a good chance of him being, you know, handed the ball. I don't think that he's going to be in there as a decoy because he's going to be more valuable on the line of scrimmage blocking or creating a hole. So you got to plug the gaps and you know, plug the gaps between the tackles. He's
Right.
going to, you know, he's just going to lower his head and, you know, try and bust his shoulders through for 3, 4, 5 yards at a time. And the momentum's going to take him an extra 12 yards. So, I mean,
It's stopping a
he's
train.
there.
There's no
Yeah,
question about
so-
it. And, you know, and I've seen even local area high schools kind of do the same thing, mostly in short yardage or maybe goal line type of offense. It was at a game at Marist this year where they used co-defensive MVP of the year, Corey Thompson Falconer, and from a couple yards out, you know, it's a big body, hard to bring down, a lot of momentum. Yeah, I could see there's purpose behind it. But
Remember when the Bears did this with William the
Well,
Refrigerator
yeah.
Perry? But there was probably somebody that did it before that. That's just one that I can remember that far back. But can you imagine trying to make an open field tackle on this guy? Where do you definitely you want to stay low? Maybe just grab a leg and hang on,
Just
huh?
stay low.
yeah,
Wait for the
gang
cavalry.
tackle. You know, because one of those pictures we saw him hit some kid, and the kid went back about 5 yards on the ground,
Yeah.
mind you.
Yeah.
So, you know.
He does run kind of straight up and down, kind of tall, though, I have to say. But when you're
He does.
6'4", 400, I think that's going to happen.
How did this high school do? I mean,
Well, they were in the playoffs, and they just lost this last weekend. Not surprisingly, the other team stacked the box and forced the quarterback to throw, and that was probably their downfall. So they ended up losing. White Swan did lose, but I think Tony Picard only carries about 5 to 10 times a game, if I understand that right. So he's kind of a novelty, but good roundtable. I was just curious what you guys thought about that and how would you approach that, and if that's a good use of a 6'4", 400-pound guy.
I can tell you many, many years ago when I was in junior high, had a coach that did that, had a really big 6'4" lineman in junior high well, he put back at tailback, and same kind of thing. He had a lot of success because the guy was hard to bring down. He was fast. He could move. But really where their natural position is on the line, and this guy ended up excelling on the line.
Yeah.
So but it's a novelty. That's my
Interestingly
opinion.
enough, the team that faced them in the playoffs that just beat them had said, we faced them last year, and when they did this with Tony, and he was smaller then. He only weighed 350.
Only.
So
Only
we
weighed
knew
350
he was out there, and
Yeah.
they might do it again, so they had some experience with that.
All
But anyway,
right.
you can Google that and look at that. Tony Picard, White Swan High School, Yakima, 6'4", 400-pound running back.
All right. Well, good for them. And, good luck to all the teams this week, state championship or semifinalists, whatever have you. That's going to wrap up this edition of Prep Talk. Make sure to tune in for our next show. We'll have some interviews of hopefully some state championship teams. As always, check out the Twitter account at Prep Talk Eugene and our YouTube channel, which is Prep Talk Eugene, for the schedule and for accessing archive shows. I'm Marvin Hammersmith.
I'm Chris Park.
And I'm Conan Lee.
You've been listening to Prep Talk. Until next time, so long.